If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It is free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You are now listening to Discover Your Potential with renowned radio talk show host and certified holistic practitioner Cindy Gilman. So listen, participate, be inspired. Know that you can discover your potential. Here she is, Cindy Gilman.
Well, hello and a happy Sunday to all of you. This is Cindy Gilman, and you're listening to Discover Your Potential. And that is the whole premise of this program, to help you, the audience, discover your potential and live your life to its fullest potential. Sometimes the universe throws us a curve. We think we're doing the right thing or in the right work or in a stale relationship or living in some place that we really don't want to live. And something happens and we say, whoops, and it points us in the right direction. Today, Doug is producing today. Hi, Doug. How are you doing out there?
We are doing fantastic. Thank you for asking.
That's great. And now, do you have a lot of flu and stuff out there?
We actually don't. I got through mine in January. It lasted like 3 weeks. My family went through it, but it's gone now.
Yeah, we've got a lot of flu and colds and coughs and stomach bugs, and people are going into the supermarket coughing and hacking. I want to go up to them and say, didn't your mother teach you to put your arm up over your mouth?
Right.
But, yeah, it's been a kind of crazy 2 weeks. It's just a lot of stuff. Well, for me, it was like my building, first the pipe that up in the upstairs apartment, their pipe that drains the bathtub went, and I'm hearing drip, 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 and I ended up having to sit in the bathroom with an umbrella on over me.
That's crazy.
And then the sewage pipe went, and I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the night, Thursday, and a third of my bathtub was filled with, it was so gross, it was sewage.
Oh.
And then I couldn't flush the toilet, and the toilet was like overflowing, and I was dumping water on. Yeah, it's like, I almost felt like there was this gray cloud over my apartment, but it turned out it wasn't just my apartment. The whole building had problems. So far, if I cough a little or if I sound a little hoarse, it's from all that stuff that I was breathing in, but it's all cleaned up now.
That's good to hear.
So I'm going to read, you know how I always begin the program and read something inspirational. This is called The Mask That Hides. Don't be fooled by me. Don't be fooled by the face I wear. I wear 1,000 masks. Masks that I'm afraid to take off, and none of them are really me. I give the impression that I'm secure, that all is sunny and unruffled within, as well as without, that I'm confidence in name and coolness is my game, that the water's calm and I need no one. But don't believe me. My surface may seem smooth, but my smooth surface is a mask. Beneath that dwells the real me, in confusion, in fear, in aloneness. But I hide this. I panic at the thought of my weakness and frantically create a mask to hide behind, to shield me from the glance that knows. Yet such a glance is precisely my salvation. I know it. It's followed by acceptance and by love. It's the only thing that will assure me of what I can't assure myself, that I'm worth something. But I don't tell you this. I don't dare. I'm afraid to. So I play my game with a facade of assurance without and a trembling child within. And so begins the parade of weeks, and my life becomes a front. Idly chatter to you, surface and top-of-the-head talk, saying nothing of what's crying within me. Please listen carefully and try to hear what I'm not saying, what I'd like to be able to say, what for survival I need to say, but what I cannot say. I dislike hiding, honestly. I'd really like to be genuine and spontaneous and me, but you've got to help me. You've got to hold out your hand, even when that's the last thing I seem to want. Each time you're kind and gentle and encouraging. Each time you try to understand me because you care, my heart grows wings. Very small wings, very feeble wings, but wings. With your sensitivity, sympathy, and your power of understanding, you can breathe life into me. I want you to know that. You can help me to be creator of the person that is me, if you choose to. You can break down the wall and release me from behind the mask, my shadow world of uncertainty, from my lonely self. Don't pass me by. I may fight against the very help I need, but try to beat down those walls with gentle hands of love and sympathy, firm but gentle hands. For that child within me is sensitive. Who am I, you may wonder? I am every man and woman you will meet. And I just love that. That's not the kind of mass we're going to be talking about today. Before I do get to our guest, who is being very patient and waiting, I just want to bring you up to date on some of the wonderful programs that are coming up in the future. You know, I do this program every other Sunday. And if for some reason you've missed part of the program, or you've missed the program, or you want somebody else to hear the program, they're made into podcasts, and you can go to iHeartRadio podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, and iTunes. So you can always hear it, or you can hear past programs. So I want to tell you, where am I here, about some of the wonderful guests that are coming up. My next program, which is on March 8th, it's also Daylight Savings Time Day, Jill Angelo will be here, and I think you're going to enjoy hearing about her and her journey and her sacred space practice. And on March 22nd, Stephen the Medium. So you can call in any time here. You can call 888-627-6008. On April 19th, where am I? April 19th, Gene Beretta, who has been on the program, and his young son, who I spoke to, and his brother, Bill Beretta, called in. Well, little did I know at that moment, Bill Beretta is the voices for several of the Muppets characters. So that's going to be a fun show. I hope he brings all the voices with him. I want to speak to the Swedish chef. So that's April 19th. Don't miss it. And then we have May 3rd. Bill and Judy Guggenheim wrote a book that I suggest as a spiritual medium. Many people come to me who have gone through loved ones who have passed on and always ask, well, what kinds of signs should I look for to know if they're around or they're watching over me? Bill and Judy Guggenheim wrote a book called Hello from Heaven. And it's not one person's experience. They interviewed over 600 people who had what they call after-death communication. And the book is fantastic, so I can't wait to talk to Bill Guggenheim. And then, of course, a woman with a phenomenal life message, May 17th, Anita Moorjani. Anita Moorjani first wrote the book Dying to Be Me. She's a woman who had stage 4 cancer. She was in a coma, had a near-death experience, was asked if she wanted to pass on or come back and help people. She said, I want to go back and help people. Awoke from the coma, and all the cancer had healed. She was cancer-free. Now, if that isn't a life lesson of what's possible, I don't know what is. And then my next guest is James Van Praagh, who is a world-renowned medium. He's out in California. So we've got quite an interesting lineup of people that are going to be on. And my guest has been so patient, and I thank him. We're going to be talking about mask making, and I'm not talking about the Lone Ranger mask. I have seen photographs of this gentleman's work, and they are pieces of art. They're phenomenal. He is a mask creator. It's called Behind the Mask Studio. Eric Bornstein, welcome to Discover Your Potential.
Hi, Cindy.
Thank you for being so patient.
Well, I've been following your storyline here.
Okay.
I'm glad we've moved on from the sewerage and the winter colds.
I'll tell you, I never, ever have seen anything like this in this. I mean, it was horrific. It was pouring out of the bathroom into the hallway.
I'm glad we made it to this point beyond that.
Yes, it's been a much better day. Thank God.
Yeah.
So, you are a professional mask maker, but your masks are like sculptured costumes.
It's interesting. I sometimes wonder what kind of a person starts making masks in the early 80s in Boston, a place with no industry for this sort of thing. And, without social media, without really knowing what else was there. I mean, I didn't feel like running off to Hollywood. I wasn't even intrigued with going to New York to work on Broadway. I was creating something unique, and I was really unaware of the industry. So it wasn't even that I was avoiding the industry. I was really unaware of it because there was none. So I was not brought up in an environment where that was a career track option. It was just something that I invented, and somehow I followed it along. I really, I have to say, when I was a teenager, my family had hoped that I'd become a doctor, and I
of course,
right? And so I went to prep school and country club, and I was good at school and all of that, and I had a vision once, and it was of being led down a well-traveled path that was like a well-paved path that led somewhere over the horizon towards somebody else's idea of success. And in this vision, I turned to my left into a dense jungle and just hacked my way through. I found my way through with maybe a machete, with whatever, and I just wandered through to the left through that jungle to who knows where without any particular plan. And I think that I look back on this, maybe I was 16 years old at the time, and I'm still wandering through that. That was still a strong choice. So I'm still there. I don't know what the goal is, and
it's not, it's not meeting the goal. It's the journey.
Well, of course. I mean, that's
the journey itself.
That's the message.
Exactly.
So I have to say that, when you began with a literary quote, and a type of theme I've heard so many times before, the literary device of the mask as a false face, that somehow it's the mask of normalcy that covers up all the, in your case it was more benign. Usually as a literary device, the mask of normalcy covers up evil intentions. It's a false face mask that covers up, some people's, I guess it's a very pessimistic view of human nature, but it's the mask of civilization that hides the primal impulses, which are somehow dark. And, of course,
I think most people at some point wear a mask, and that mask can be the clothing they wear, or how they wear their hair.
Absolutely. RuPaul had actually the best things to say about this. He says, we are born naked, everything else is drag. Right? So in other words, it's all a construct. Everything that we do, it's just a matter of whether or not we have, he just suggests that we have fun with it, that we be aware that it is all construct. And he certainly does. And he is a genius. He's amazing. I don't really follow his show, but I occasionally catch clips of him talking, and what he says is brilliant, and it really relates to a lot of what I do. But to get on with that, so the idea of the social mask, because like you were saying, that's not what I do. So as a literary device, really what's being talked about is the social mask, this mask that's a protective social device. That either hides your evil intentions or it hides your tender side, the child within, as in your poem. And what I'm dealing with is something very different. I'm dealing with not the false face mask. I'm dealing with the true face mask. I'm saying that in the expression of our authentic self are multitudes of true faces that are playful, serious, serene, spiritual, lascivious, it's all manner of expression. It's the like Joseph Campbell, the idea of the faces of God. That this can be it's a combination of it's no mask at all. There's no word for it, or there's multitudes. There's hundreds of words for it. There's definitely many manifestations of it. And in fact, even in representations of deities, you see, like, say, in Hinduism or Buddhism, you see many different manifestations of a deity represented in physical image. And I find that people, and of course, as you see in the religious practice, the devotional practice, that people can identify with, say, the image of Kuan Yin as this compassionate female figure of all these other characters that embody different elements of existence, of just our existential journey. And so I think that the mask work that I explore is really just to explore the multitudes of true faces, to try to really celebrate authenticity in all of its range from whimsical to sublime, and they're all okay. People will look in my studio where there's hundreds of masks all over with all different faces, smiling, grimacing, animal, human, creatures, all different types, and they'll say, "My God, don't you? If you're ever here late at night, aren't you scared?" And I say,
"Why would you be scared?"
Certainly not. I said, everything in here was made with love. Everything is made with love. I'm surrounded in love here.
You've studied with some very prestigious people. You've won all types of awards. You were awarded the commission of 120 statuettes for the Reggae Gold event in Kingston, Jamaica. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, let's see. Let me start from the beginning. Yes, when I was trying to really create mask making, starting in about 1980 or so, and I didn't even know how to do paper mache. I graduated with a degree in fine art, but I had never done anything like this. I'd done sculpting and painting and dance and theater and avid student of folklore. And I remember walking down Newbury Street in Boston and just looking at anything that was made of paper mache, different artifacts and gift items from, say, Mexico. And I'd touch them and tap them and rub them and then go to Utrecht, the art store, and try to, ask around, and I'd experiment. So there were no YouTube tutorials. I just experimented, trial and error, many, many errors. And
now, where did you get your fine arts degree from?
From Clark University. My undergraduate degree was Clark University in Worcester. And
when you mentioned Newbury Street, I went to Emerson.
Right. Well, that was so. After I graduated Clark in '80, I moved to Boston. So, and where I remain in the area. So I was trying to create this around 1985 or 6. I went to Bali. And studied mask carving in Bali, sitting with a sarong, cross-legged, carving the wood. Later, in 92, I went to Italy and studied with Donato Sartori, the leading mask maker in the world of the Commedia dell'arte mask of the Italian tradition.
Oh, yes.
And there we did cartapesta, their form of paper mache, and we carved wood, and we did leather masks as well. Wow. But with all of this, with studying these, these different techniques and all of this, I was still developing my own techniques at home. And when I came back, I just incorporated these experiences into my research. And at that point, I was already teaching mask making, and I developed different techniques. And again, this was decades before social media and YouTube. And there really were very few mask makers around. I didn't know any, except for at some point I became aware of Julie Taymor. In fact, I had to restore some of her masks for the ART 20th anniversary poster, which I actually ended up. I'm in that poster wearing one of her masks for the King Stag, her famous early show. But so I went to New York and I visited Julie Taymor. And up at her loft, and I talked with her, and I had some pictures of masks that I'd made. This was, at this point, when I visited her, I think it was mid-'80s. But she was not particularly helpful. I didn't walk away from that meeting with really any inspiration or any guidance. And so, again, that's why I went off to Bali, and I went to Italy. And, again, when I would run into another mask maker, say in the 90s, I remember running into a mask maker, and I was so excited to talk about mask making, and I was so surprised because they wouldn't say anything. They were
wearing a mask.
Well, yeah, they were afraid. Well,
a different kind
very
of
weird.
mask.
They were afraid because mask makers were working in such isolation. So a lot of folks they were afraid to talk to any other person in their field because they thought that person would steal their secrets. So it was shocking. I was so excited to talk about all of this, and I had been teaching my techniques and sharing my secrets because, you still have to work pretty hard to make things. And so I was surprised that was a little disappointed that was the attitude I encountered. And really, it's so funny. Fast forward, 20 or so years to starting, say, in 2009, when you have all this beautiful skill sharing on Facebook and YouTube. It's just wonderful. There's mask making colleagues of mine that I talk to almost daily, and we'll bounce ideas off of each other or comment on each other's work or share information. It's just delightful. And they're
from all around the world?
From all around the world. Yeah,
right.
I always felt that in terms of artists working together, that rather than, I know that artists often have to, they have to deal with a lot of lack of support, but it creates a lot of insecurity for many artists. And my feeling was that rather than fight over one little slice of pie, why don't we get together and make a bigger pie?
Right.
It just seems to be a more empowering point of view. The same way the idea of working with true face masks is more empowering than working with false face masks. That to me didn't. That's kind of. It certainly describes a phenomenon, a social phenomenon that happens. But as far as a spiritual journey that's evolves into something positive, then pursuing the true face mask makes more sense. So let's see. Let me continue answering your question. So early studies, Jamaica. So I had a Fulbright award that brought me to Jamaica in 2016 or 17, where I had to reinvent and reinvigorate the Jamaican art of effigy making, which are these sort of giant 5 feet high puppet faces of the national heroes and cultural icons that are then marched in the national celebration once a year, and that in costume, and they represent all these important characters. And this art had died out on the island. It hadn't really been seen for about 50 years. Wow. So it was a really remarkable dialogue that led me to this project. But then I went in there, and I had really 2 months to work with a largely unskilled Jamaican team to create 10 giant masks, each of which would have taken me 2 months to make.
Wow.
So we just made a miracle. I had a really magical experience and really connected with all the folks I was working with down there. I was given a beautiful studio, and I don't know, I really connected with the group that I had, and I taught them all of this. But because I was there to do one thing, I could work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was really intense. It was complete immersion. And then I was really insisting. I had to be very charismatic and insistent to get support in there, because there were lots of paper mache, lots of sculpting, lots of work, and to get folks aboard on this. Because one of the problems with my art form is, it's like even today I was at a dinner and people ask me what I do, and I say I'm a mask maker, and I'm used to this. I look in their face when I say this, and they're scanning. Yep. No information retrieved. What does that look like? Mask maker. So I always
when people ask me, and I say, "Well, I'm a spiritual medium, but I'm a teacher. I'm helping people to understand that there's more to life than here."
Right. Well, it's all of this is when people hear and see these type of things. Of course, it makes sense to them when you explain it to them. But in the average wake-a-day life, it just doesn't seem to fit in. Everybody's so busy following the mainstream and just getting by and surviving and taking care of their families. Often they don't have time for all of this. So that's our role. People that do these special tasks, these special missions, really are role models for people to, be aware of these other concerns in life, these other dialogues. We are not just operating on one level, and it's very easy to get caught up living at a mundane level and just surviving, and we're more than that. In yogic philosophy, there are different sheaths of the body: a physical sheath, an emotional sheath, a spiritual sheath. All of this, and the idea of just being able to see through the smoke and mirrors of society, through all the different agendas that are sent out to befuddle us, and to see through that. And
we're dealing with a lot of that right now.
Yeah, of course.
It's become a very interesting, I don't even know what adjective to put on it. It's just,
it's
definitely a time of change.
It is, and it's time when more and more it's important for people to look through that and try to trust their heart and trust a higher instinct, to see through it and be authentic and just be real, be vulnerable, be authentic, to just try to avoid this constant violence that happens on so many levels.
I know.
And to just let the healing and just work on healing and inspiration. It's just so much more fun than venting all this violence and expressing it in such toxic ways. So
I mean, I see people, even when I'm out in public, I see so many people that are so stressed and so uptight, and it's like they're not smiling.
Right.
And I want to say, it's okay. You can smile. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, sometimes
there's something higher going on.
There is. They need a way to express it. I'm always talking about, I call it like inner feng shui, just a flow of emotion, of ideas, of thoughts, of just keeping an inner dialogue flowing, because there's so much confusing information and data that we're exposed to, and if it just sits there, it stagnates and becomes toxic. And
then it affects people's health.
It affects everything around. It affects their health and everyone around them, the work they do, the energy they put out into the world. So it has to flow. You have to have a pressure valve release that's a healthy pressure valve release, not letting something sit and fester until it explodes. You need, as artists, I feel that we're very lucky because we're constantly creating art. So a lot of these
you have that outlet for your talent,
it's just a normal part of the day to let this flow. It's natural.
I want to talk about some of the things that you've done and some things coming up, but we have to take a very short break. So, Eric, hold on. And, Doug, we're going to take a little break, and we'll come right back. My guest today is Eric Bornstein, who's not only an incredible artistic and talented mask maker, I would say he's not only a student of spirituality, but there's a little bit of a philosopher in him, too. We'll be right back.
Cindy Gilman is a certified holistic and Reiki and energy practitioner, as well as a spiritual medium. As a spiritual medium and empath, she conducts individual personal consults either by phone or in her office. All sessions are professional and confidential. For a phone consultation or in-office appointment, go to www.cindygilman.com or call 401-885-4115.
And we are back. And you're listening to Discover Your Potential. I'm Cindy Gilman. My guest today is the very extraordinarily talented Eric Bornstein, who I don't even know how to describe you, because you've been so philosophical in this phone conversation, but your business is actually called Behind the Mask Studio, correct?
Right.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done. I've got some information here, and some of it seems very intriguing, and some of it seems kind of tongue-in-cheek. Babes and Boinkland, the slut cracker, a burlesque.
Of course, that's a Davis Square tradition. If you're in the city, you're aware of the neo-burlesque scene. So there's a lot of very courageous primarily women and men. There's actually boylesque as well, but primarily women who are, and it's not the old style burlesque. This is neo burlesque. This is very creative, empowering, and in any event, there's several different groups, and I'm friendly with several of them, including the Slaughterhouse Society. I've done the most work with, and they do a lot of horror burlesque and other things. I did Revenge of the Robot Battle Nuns, and the Spider Cult, the musical, a burlesque of Dracula, and a number of others. But there's another, the largest event, a burlesque event, is called the Slutcracker. It's kind of a send-up of the Nutcracker, done in a really fun, whimsical burlesque style that's very racy and funny and creative, and it was just such a hit. I think now it's been going on for about 10 years or so, but I remember when it first happened, it just exploded. I mean, it was so popular, it sold out. They had to run it another week, and then the next year, so I went to see it the next year, and I saw it and said, I saw the Polichinelles they had there were these sort of phallic masks, and I said, oh, gee, they need better masks. So the next year I made masks for them that were used that season, and they were lots of fun. And but I remember going to the show and just seeing everyone was out. Everybody was out. They were dressed up. The balconies were packed. Everyone was smiling. I'd turn around, and everyone was just so lit up and having so much fun. I looked on stage. The performers were having so much fun, and it was like, wow, what an amazing thing. And then it became a tradition. They've had
so they do it every year.
They do it every year, and I remember reading an interview. I think they take it up to Canada, and they travel with it sometimes, or at least they did. But certainly it plays here, and it runs a solid, through the holiday season, and it's enormously popular. And they audition for a different cast every year, and everyone. They tweak the show every year, and it's a real tradition. It's right here in my neighborhood. So, I know when people first hear it, they're like, "What are you talking about?" But it's kind of fun, and that's what I like dealing with these the fringe groups. I mean, I've done work with the Boston Ballet and the Boston Lyric Opera, the Museum of Fine Arts, the Gardner Museum, and all of that. All those wonderful institutions. But I love working with the fringe theater companies, the fringe performers, the different subcultures that bring a lot of diversity and challenging new ideas. I get to make pieces or design pieces that I would never be able to make for a lot of the more mainstream institutions that I work with. So it's
now how does the idea for a mask? It's really like a costume. How does that come through to you?
Well,
because I get a feeling that you're an empath, that it comes through
absolutely
intuitively.
Absolutely does. I mean, it comes like all creativity. There's no one path. I mean, I remember for one show, I remember taking the script, working with the director, and I took the script, and late at night, I drew a hot bubble bath, and I sat in the bubble bath with candles lit, and I read the script and opened my mind, and I visualized all of the masks that I then designed drew the next day, and went on to create. I mean, that makes a nice story, but is it all like that? No, I just designed 12 pieces for Pinocchio, which I'll talk about in a moment. It's opening up next weekend, and I remember with that, I actually in December I had hernia surgery, and that night I was still on the narcotics, and I just went into my studio and I just thought about the characters, and I made some little sketches, and then the next day I started the sculptures, and I just worked on them every day, and in fact I was still taking the narcotics for a week.
Oh dear.
And but I just went into the studio and put myself into a frame of mind where I just sat at my table and I sculpted. But
you almost put yourself in a meditative state.
Absolutely. So
that and open your mind to the ideas that are there to come through.
Absolutely. I just try to get out of the way. I just try to get out of the way of the expression of the characters and pay attention. It's like how do you develop a relationship? You listen. If you really listen to somebody, that's the only way that you really come to some understanding. So
is there an older man in spirit, either from your family that had some artistic or creative ability, or am I picking up on a teacher of yours who passed on, who's watching over you? I
wish. I always wondered about that. I always asked about that in my internal dialogues. I came from a family with no artists. My aunt my mother's sister did some calligraphy and a little bit of art, but really I'm the only one in my family lineage that took up art. Like I said, I was
a gentleman, and it may even have been one of your teachers over the years.
Yeah. I hope they make themselves known to me. I've certainly asked if there's anybody out there.
Whoever it is just flickered my light, so somebody's there. So maybe they're fooling with electrical equipment at your place. Have you had some light bulbs go out, or
no?
Any electronic equipment, a computer or something go down?
No, everything is just the same.
All right, well, I've just asked him to send you some sort of physical... have you found any dimes or pennies?
No.
Sometimes they'll do that. Well,
okay.
Be aware, because there's so many ways. I mean, you may just feel something or get goosebumps or get a chill, and you know that someone in spirit is there. And this is definitely an older gentleman.
Okay. I will, I'll keep my mind open to that.
You know what? He's speaking another language other than English.
Well,
I wonder if it was one of your teachers overseas.
Maybe if he's speaking Italian, Master Sartori has passed on, so...
Bingo.
It could be, it could be him.
It is him. What was his first name?
Donato.
What was it?
Donato. D-O-N.
Donato?
Donato.
Ooh, do you know what he just said to me?
What?
He said, "Don't you call me by my first name." Woo! Here I am trying to make this contact with him to tell him to send you a definite physical. Oh, he says sometimes the ideas that you do get, like even in your dreams, he's sending some ideas.
Well, you can't ask for a better person to send your ideas.
He said, "Call me Signor Sartori." Signor Sartori. And we just repeated it.
Okay.
That's him. He's keeping an eye on you.
Well, that's good to know.
Oh, he loves the Pinocchio puppet.
Wonderful.
He said he likes the way you made the nose.
Yep. Well, I made in this one. It's being played. The name of the show is called Pinocchio: A Commedia Adventure, and it's done in a commedia dell'arte style, the traditional Italian theatrical style. And the woman who's playing Pinocchio is a commedia specialist, Chiara Durazzini, and she's really quite amazing. And I made a custom Pinocchio / Arlecchino mask for her, and it is just remarkable. The way that it comes to life with her. When I watch the rehearsals, it's just remarkable. Let me just give you the information about the show before we run out of time.
Please, so we can pass it on to people. Where is it going to be?
So Pinocchio, A Commedia Adventure, is going to be February 29th and March 1st. So on Saturday, it'll be 2 shows at 10 a.m. and at 3 p.m., and on March 1st, the Sunday, it'll be at 3 p.m. This is at Union Church in Waban, near Newton.
Waban, Massachusetts.
Right near Newton.
Because we have listeners from all over the world.
Great. Well, 14 Collins Road in Waban.
So for people in New England,
Right. And then
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
It's
Go
at
ahead.
the Union Church in Waban, Massachusetts, which is part
Correct.
of Newton.
I think so, or adjoining Newton. Most people know Newton.
Right.
Now in March, I'm going to be appearing as a featured artist at the Northeast Comic Con in Boxborough, Massachusetts, March 13th, 14th, and 15th. I'll set up a display and sale, but I'll also be running a cosplay camp. I'm going to be doing workshops on Saturday and Sunday for teenagers and whoever else wants to do it. I'll be doing a mask technique that I do quite frequently at schools, libraries, and festivals, where in an hour or so you can make a complete mask and have it all ready to wear, and you can wear it even if you have glasses. No paint or glue, and you get something really whimsical and
now,
wonderful.
Where is that going to be?
Boxborough, Mass. So it's close to me, about 30 minutes from me. I'm in Somerville, Mass,
Right.
and so it's about 30-minute drive for me.
Now, where in Boxborough is it going to be held?
It's at the Boxborough Regency Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So there's we kind of take over the hotel.
And
So-
give us the dates again.
So Northeast Comic Con, March 13th, 14th, and 15th.
Comic-Con. Isn't that... all right, I'm going to sound...
There's different Comic-Cons. There's Comic-Cons in Boston and in California, all over the country. But
is that
this
for
one is,
comic book figures or
well,
superheroes?
it's a wide variety. It's a pop culture extravaganza. So you'll see some of the famous artists who draw Spider-Man and other heroes, both the classic ones and the contemporary characters. You'll see, and lots of different characters. Gigi Edgley from Farscape will be there this time, and she's been a frequent guest. Philo Barnhart, the guy who drew the Disney's Little Mermaid. So all those Little Mermaid characters. Philo is, I don't know if he'll be there this time. He's been traveling a lot. I'm dealing with some medical issues, but he is delightful. And you look at his drawings, and let me tell you, I mean, this is the guy who drew Ursula and all those other characters.
Wow.
And there's other, like so many amazing artists, and you get to meet them, and other personalities. You used to have, of course, the, what's his name, the original Batman. He was there for many, many years, a good friend of Gary, the promoters, and he passed on a few years ago. But he was there regularly. So many wonderful characters from the TV shows that you loved or movies that you loved, voiceover actors, just so many folks. There's even a medium who's there.
Really?
I'm trying to remember her name, but she's very popular, and I've been set up next to her before, and she's kind of delightful. So many folks, and there's something for everybody.
Now, has she ever picked up on your mentor, your teacher?
No,
Sartori?
we never really talked about me. We just chat, but I never get into any of that with her.
Wow.
So. But in any event, those are two public events going on. I do a lot of school programs, and we have some shows that we've been taking around for the last 20 years or so, and it's lots of fun. It gets me around. And then I'm working on some new commissions. I'm making a new set of Nutcracker masks for a major American ballet company. And so as soon as I start that, I'll be sort of showing it on my Facebook. And then some other characters, someone else for cosplay, and for those of your listeners who don't know what cosplay is, it's a major subculture now of fans who like to dress up as their favorite characters. And so it often, could be video game characters, could be anime characters, comic book characters, movie characters, etc. But the art, there's a lot of do-it-yourself culture here, where folks making their armor and their masks and this and that. But very often, folks will commission me to make really fine masks. So one mask that I'll be working on this summer that'll be premiered at Dragon Con down in Atlanta, Georgia, in August.
Oh, wow.
Will be Splinter, who is the teacher from Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles.
Ah.
Right. So the rat who was their teacher. So his name is Splinter. So I'll be making a Splinter mask at some point in the summer, and then these Nutcracker masks. There'll be I think 10 of them, 10 different pieces, and based on the Morris Sendak illustrations. So like a multi-headed Mouse King, and it'll be very exciting. I've made Nutcracker masks before, but this will be an original set, and that's a big job. And then there's some other pieces that I'll be working on as well, private commissions. People have new companies, and they have an avatar that they to advertise their company. Musicians will often call me to make performance masks for them. Recently, I made masks for a local rapper.
How can people reach you? Through your Facebook page?
Yeah, Facebook page is great, or you can find me. My website is behindthemask.org, O-R-G. That has links to everything, to my Facebook, to all those other sites.
Do you have an email that you want to give out?
Yeah, absolutely. My email is easy to remember. It's behindthemask, all one word, the number one, @gmail.com. Behindthemask1 @gmail.com. And just put something in the subject line so that I know it's a legit inquiry. And I always get back to everybody. So I love chatting with people about masks. I love doing consultations. I love having guests in the studio. And yes, you can take photographs. And
we've got to get a field trip from down here to go up and see your studio.
Absolutely.
I mean, that would... Oh, what about the giant Brother Blue puppet and Butterflies of Love?
Well, Brother Blue was a major figure in the storytelling community for about 40 years. He died in 2008, and we were friends all from the 80s on. And he was a remarkable character. He and Brother Blue and Sister Ruth, his partner, traveled all over Boston. He did many programs, and he was a mentor and role model for the whole community of storytellers. And when he passed on, it was, in 2008, it was I remember it was a very murky, gray November day, and the economy in 2008 was really pretty awful. So everyone was pretty anemic and struggling. And then I remember going to his wake, and I saw him laying in the casket, looking so beautiful, and I went out into the porch and looked outside, and I said, a great tree has fallen. I said, what's the point of being an artist if I can't make a tribute to my friend and my colleague? And so I had a vision of this giant face, and he used to paint butterflies on his hands, and he would show the palms of his hands, and he was...
Were they monarchs?
Well, he painted blue butterflies. He was Brother Blue, so he was all painted in blue. He was a little bit Mr. Bojangles and a little bit street poet and a little bit, he was one of a kind, and he wore butterflies adorning his blue beret and on his clothes as well. And anyway, so I pictured that giant face and the hands as puppets, and then I pictured 100 butterflies following him. So I pitched the idea to the Cambridge Arts Council, and they liked the idea. And so that year I made the giant puppet and the giant hands and 10 of the butterflies, and we premiered them at the Cambridge River Festival as part of their grand procession, the opening procession of the River Festival. And then they took up station, and he set them up like a shrine during the festival, and it was really wonderful, and Ruth would be there. And then they were there for several years. They were part of that parade, and then they stopped having the parade. So then the search was finding places for, this whole installation to live, because they're so big. I had to build it outside. I had to For a lot of my big pieces, I had to build a structure in the backyard to actually build something under it because it would not get through a doorway, and then you need to rent trucks to move them. So,
did you ever ask him what the butterflies signified to him?
Well, I mean, butterflies have always been messengers from the spirit world to this world. I mean, that's a pretty standard, like the symbolism of butterflies. And I think that's I think he also was inspired. He was inspired. His brother growing up had Down syndrome, and so there was some connection there. It's a little hazy now, but
butterflies are a sign of transformation as well.
Yes, absolutely. And so, but he was certainly, Brother Blue was a messenger. He was not fully of this world. I mean, we always would joke and say, he was the balloon and Ruth was the string, and she was an essential part of their partnership, that she was sort of the quiet one in the background, but everyone knew that without Ruth, Blue would be he would be God knows where.
1 minute.
Okay. So, Josh
unfortunately, we have to finish up in a minute. So, people, if they want to go to your website, it's
behindthemask.org.
Behind the Mask, www.behindthemask.org.
Right, or even better is just find me, Eric Bornstein.
And it's Bornstein, and for our audience, that's spelled B-O-R-N, like born, Steen, S-T-E-I-N. And
that's
Eric
right.
is with a C.
That's correct. And you'll find me on Facebook, and you'll know it's me. And that's really the best place to find me. And, I encourage you to reach out to me. So I just wanted to say, Joss Whedon, the director, has said, don't be yourself, be all yourselves. And I would encourage you to follow that. So
that is a message to our audience from Eric Bornstein. Thank you so much for spending this hour with me. For those of you who would like to set up a phone session with me, you can go to Cindy at cindygilman.com. Thank you for a wonderful hour, Eric, and thank you, Doug, for all that you do. And a special send-out hi to my wonderful son, Dan, who arranges all these people, and to my grandson, Michael, and his brother, Ben. A big shout-out. I love all of you. And thanks again. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with Jill Angelo, who I know you're going to enjoy. And that's about it. Have a great rest of the evening. Don't forget the podcasts. You can get them on different podcast availabilities. Pandora, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and iTunes. And I think that's about it. Have a great evening. And know you are always blessed. Bye-bye for now.
Hello, I am Ron Hayden of Voices Unlimited. I've been writing and voicing radio and television commercials, toys, games, corporate sales, and training, and so much more for over 25 years nationally and globally. I will write or co-write and voice your radio or TV spots, on-hold messages, or whatever you need in one of my many voices or celebrity voices, custom characters, or an announcer voice. A great gift idea. Have me make a celebrity phone call for a special occasion. Just go to www.ronhayden.com to sample my voice demos. Email me at rhvoices1@msn.com. I look forward to working with you in a high voice, a low voice, or just my voice. Cindy Gilman is a certified holistic and Reiki and energy practitioner, as well as a spiritual medium. As a spiritual medium and empath, she conducts individual personal consults either by phone or in her office. All sessions are professional and confidential. For a phone consultation or in-office appointment, go to www.cindygilman.com or call 401-885-4115.
This is the